Hello, everyone. Dr. Jim Hoven, your host of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast here, and it is my complete joy to bring you guests that are doing amazing things in not only their own lives, but in the lives of others, and today is no exception. Today, I have someone who, this is my first time getting a chance to visit and meet with her, but she is a friend of my wife, and my wife is deeply connected with cool people, and so today, you're going to have an incredible opportunity to meet with a healer, with someone who has a perspective that's so unique, so rare and fun, comparatively speaking to what the norm is, that you're going to want to take notes, you're going to want to absorb this information like a sponge and even pass it along, because today my guest Ananda is not only a Reiki master, she teaches yoga, she's certified in Tai Chi and Qigong, and she's even built her own thing called the three, and make sure I say this right, is it keys?
Keys,
The
yes.
three keys, but it's not spelled K-E-Y, it's spelled K-I. So guys, gals, hold on. As you watch this, hold on, absorb this information, because I promise for a lot of you, it's going to be something new and something very, very special. So without further ado, Ananda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so honored. Thank you for setting this up for me, Dr. Hoven.
Absolutely. First, I want to get a little bit into your background and I don't want you to go into specifics, literally. I want you to share with us what it is that an alternative, or I'm going to call this, for lack of a better term, a complementary and alternative medicine, CAM is what it's known as, because you have your allopathic and your standard medicine, and then what I do as chiropractic and what you do in all these interesting forms of healing and body balance and life balance that you do falls under the CAM approach. So tell me a little bit first about what this healing means to you.
Well, it actually started from a chiropractor in Vail, Dr. Wignall, and so it was so exciting when Shauna, your wife, set this up for me, because I'm like, oh, I can talk to you about anything. It was a life change because he was electrical engineer before he went to chiropractic. So he already was connected to the energetics of things. He didn't just do the approach of the manual manipulation of the body. We did things like the NAET, which I heard you're...
allergy elimination.
Yes,
super
huge,
effective stuff.
Amazing. And so we did everything from nutrition. We had the cold lasers. As I was getting into this, I also was getting into... Everything happened at the same time. I was already in studying Buddhism, trying to get through with my depression and what was going on in my life. And
so you had a lot going on. This time was...
and there was no reason to. My life was really good in Vail, and I had this since I was a kid. I always had this disconnect that there's something more. But in traditional world, it didn't give you those things. It is, you get married, you have a good paying job, you have children, you retire. And I just kept looking at the world that there's got to be something more.
So you had questions was this as a young child when you started noticing this?
Yeah, I was not a problem child, but the church was not used to my questions on different things.
And was your family part of a church, or like was that part of the fabric of your lives?
Yes, yeah. And I was so much in the love of it, of Jesus, of God, and everything. But the disconnect of, if people don't fit in that position of what you say a Christian is and everything, then you're out. And I just thought, that doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
So through life and having this disconnect, it got me more and more into things like depression. And this is where the name that came later through Kundalini, Ananda, meant a lot, because that means bliss. So the minute I honored in anything that we have to go through, that we don't have to identify with these things, these are, whether they're programmings or they are belief systems, that once you get to your truth, you're fearless. You can take on the task of the world because you are so connected in. So going back to that with the doctor and that of the Tai Chi and Qigong go hand in hand. So when I was working with the energies of those, it brings a sense where you can feel this energy moving through. In no time at all, I wanted to go into Reiki then, because you're already having it. When I was in Buddhism, I was connecting in through the meditation, where are these things coming from, and why am I feeling this wave of energy, and where is it going? So as time has gone on through these practices, I thought there has to be an easier way for people in moving through this path, because once I realize that I'm not stagnant to my history and to the conditioning of the world around me. I can live fearless and get to explore and not think that, well, if it doesn't work out, well, then go try something else.
Yeah.
And so that's where this repertoire of stuff that I have is, because I want to know what's all out there. When I was in the Tai Chi and the Qigong, which is still part of my practice, it's beautiful, but it's known for being very grounding and very water. So as I go back to that of the child and the depression, I also had a lot of anger. I had that just explosive, very almost bipolar on things, where I can be so loving and then it's just, get off of me or whatever. So the first thing I had to do was tame that fire in me. But it came to such a point, and you'll hear this all the time with yogis or with spiritualists, that they say, well, that's not what Jesus would do, or what would Dalai Lama, all these things. And it's like, I never said I am Dalai Lama or these other people. I am very human.
It built in a way for you to still be human. And because I know, I was raised in the Christian faith, and there was a section of that group, or a sect of that group, that it felt very judgmental, right? Where, okay, you're going to do something, and if you do it, you win the spiritual prize, right. And if you don't, you lose, and God's either going to punish you, or there's all these things happening, right? And so when you read the words of the book, you get one interpretation, but then when humans take that and they put judgment and they put expectations on it, especially as leaders, if you don't meet that, now all of a sudden, who's punishing who? Is it humans punishing humans, God punishing humans? Like, how does it work? So to hear that you said, I'm not going to be the Dalai Lama. I'm never going to be Buddha. Right. And that allows for the perfection of imperfection, so to speak.
And this is the other huge thing with it, because I just finished reading the whole Bible front to back. And I just did a few days ago. I thought, it was really important to get away from what I remember other people telling me and to read it for myself and what I get out of it.
What did you get?
Not to say,
did you get any major big themes or a few things, or what was the process?
There's a lot in it. I was very much a purist in because of the Buddhism, and I do agree with a lot of it. And this is where I say I can go in so many different ways with this stuff, but being a truth seeker, that was the one thing as a kid and that I got from the church is I went to this camp and it was God loves truth seekers. And I thought, well, if nothing else, I can hold on to that, because I will, even if it's hard, truth can be hard at times. You need to follow that. So with it, the beginning, so the Old Testament has a lot of that retribution, a lot of the things that even parents and society can use in the shaming, the control, the keeping certain narratives out there. And I see it, and I'm such a speaker and a listener. I'm not asking people to think my way, but I also don't want them to have preconceived notions, including that of the yogi, that I'm going to jump on whatever the latest hot topic is out there. And I've had some of these things even come with the plant medicine, because I see this ebb and flow with it of, everything has is purity. There is truth in a lot of different things. And that's where, even going back to the church, I was asking them about. It's like, well, if the Native Americans naturally live by the same principles we do, and if God is all loving, all knowing, and I love and I accept them, then how can he be less than that of me? So a lot of these things, it's not so complicated. That of working with the energies, that of being connected in, it is not that hard. I have people come to my 3 Keys class, and within no time, they're feeling this energy in their hands, they're feeling it in their body. I have them in deep relaxation, I'm working on them, and all of a sudden they're feeling it, they're feeling the shifts. I had them work on my dog that got bit by another dog, big gouge in the neck, and it was on a weekend, and I just thought, you know what? It happened late at night with my roommate's dog.
That's not open tomorrow.
And I thought, So I said, you're coming to work with me. I had them all work on her, and within a few hours, how the hole went down, everything on it, it was amazing. And they got to hear that we worked on plants. So with all these different ways, that is one way of working with energy, very much the calming, what you would say, the yogi, the the person that makes you smile, that, oh, when I'm in their space, it's grounding, it's calming. In Kundalini, which you would probably really love being a chiropractor. I am going to get you to a class.
I'm on my way this weekend.
Yes, we got our full moon ceremony. You are working with the spine. And the thing with the spine is this is where you'll see those things like the snakes going up the staff, or it used to be vines at one time. And I can't get with people on the whole symbolic things because...
Yeah, those can get wild.
It goes so far.
Very
and,
deep. It's very deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is. And not everyone that does certain signs are aware, and it means different things, and that is a warping. But however you want to look at it, that of the serpents or that of the vines going up the staff, it is moving that energy up the spine to bring that infinite space. So when that came in, I finally honored that fire in me. I honored that there is a lot of mental, there's a lot of air. That's also why I'm that truth seeker. So it's not a bad thing for me to have this instead of always being in the meditation that I'm just going to watch my breath. I'm just going to be grounded. We have all of these principles. It's just like the yin and yang. And so the minute we start cutting these things out of ourselves, we are not getting to see what we came here to be.
Wow.
And so whatever class people come to, it is on all levels. I am learning every time. I still take people through the Tai Chi long form, just the first portion of the 3-part. And every time I do it, which I've been doing practice 20 years or whatever, is still new. So every time we bring it in, we bring in different elements.
For some people who are not familiar with the vocabulary that we've been going back and forth with, I'm going to try to break this down a little bit for folks.
Thank you.
Because, again, it's so natural. This has been your life for a long time. For some people, they're like, wait a minute, Kundalini this, and then energy that. And from the perspective of trying to bring this in, we're all made of energy. At the end of the day, whether our cells and the mitochondria with the cells they're the energy producers of the cells. Without energy, some people connect the energy to the spirit or to the soul of the person, right? Whereas you have a mind and a brain, and then you have a consciousness and an energy. And so, however, whatever the religious tradition or whatever the spiritual bent, it comes down to you've got to connect that part of you with something, with another one of those, me to you, or with a higher power, God, or whatever else you might call that, and then fostering that, right? Like bringing that to life and bringing that to bear in the expression of how you live day to day. Because here's one thing that I know. I follow some people online, and I'm really excited to talk with you because I've never taken the steps on things like Qigong. It's part of my morning routine, right? Like first my whole morning routine is not important, but with respect to the movement part, first there's 20 minutes of Qigong, and then there's 30 to 60 minutes of more intense movement, right? My workout, so to speak, we'll call it. But I stack them together for my own reasons. But being able to go slow and go fast. What I heard you say is there's this, the word I'm gonna use is softness, the water, the softness, and then the fire. And I won't use aggressiveness as a negative, but that aggressiveness towards life. We've got to be able to rest and then to fight if needed, to rest and then to act. And so have you found that, is that a pretty good description?
You're gonna love Kundalini.
Yeah.
Because that is something we do a lot of. So that stop-go, working that autonomic nervous system. So you'll do things even like the breath of fire, where it's a quick breath as you're holding these intense movements, even working your core in that time. And that's in Tai Chi and Reiki, the Hara, the Dantian, they call it the navel point. That is our furnace. That is what creates that energy to flow up to the crown. So in that, you will be doing a couple minutes of something where it's really intense, and then all of a sudden it's rest. And the minute you do that, just like you would on that runner's high when they get back to the house and you just drop in.
Those endorphins are flowing.
Yeah, and you're at peace.
Yeah.
And so we go back and forth in that the whole time, so that it's another way. And that's why I love when people say, I can't meditate. It's like, you don't know. You might have not found that right key. And I thought, gosh, if I knew this 20 years ago when I was getting meditation and I'm just crying and I'm beating myself of all the horrible things I did.
You're such a bad human.
And guess what? I still am, but there's a lot good there too. And we're learning, and is giving that permission and the understanding. And it's like, we're all trying to figure it out. On the most part, people are good. On the most part, people are generous. Now, with that said, also their emotions can definitely be played in the world. And that's how you become the people pleasers. That's how you agree to things that you may not agree that's happening in society. This is where you will keep your mouth shut instead of saying what you feel in your heart. So the more and more we can tap into that, and that I am okay and at peace in myself, which is why these practices are important, that you're not always being tapped into other people and bouncing your reality off of them, that am I okay? Am I likable? Am I not? That, do you like yourself?
Self-awareness.
Exactly. So that is where these practices bring you back in, because even on the most subtle level, including that with spirit. So what is my connection to source?
Yes.
What is my connection to myself? Why am I called here? It doesn't have to be some grandiose thing. In that moment, that destiny, everything I have done is through a place of inspiration. So inspiration, that of spirit, that of the breath. That's why they keep talking with prana, all these things, chi. So as you said, with words that we use, chi, ki, prana, it's all this of this life force.
Can you define those just a little bit again? Because we're gonna go into a little bit of whether it's this the Reiki side. What is Reiki? How does that work with energy? Chi with energy, prana with energy. Is there a single thread, or are there distinctions of the same?
No,
so go into
beauty.
that. Share that.
So when you say things like Qigong, Qi is one way of saying it. That is more the Chinese way of saying it. In Japan, where Reiki comes from, it's Ki. And then with India, it's that of prana. So it's that universal life force. That's why when we pass here, it's like, where does spirit go? That of inspiration, it's what we breathe. It's like in the Tao Te Ching, the 10,000 words, and it will not tap on what it is. It's beyond that. So we have this flowing through us. So when we get to work with our breath in meditation, we are going inward and connecting with that. When we're doing things like the Qigong, the medical work with it, so we're working with it between our hands, we're moving it through our body. When we do things like Tai Chi, we're connecting with nature. We're able to be like that airbender. When you see those movies and you're like, gosh, you can almost feel that force as they're moving through it. And then you have that of Reiki, where you're able to be the healer onto others. So it's all the same. And that's what's beautiful. It seems like I have this whole array of things, but no, when you tap into really the key, you get to play in the different areas. And that's how Activate Crystals even came to be with the crystal work, because some people are so tuned into the crystals. I love them. I mean, you're probably hearing them half the time moving around. I held it back even in coming here, but we have life force all around us, and some people it's with the plants, others can receive it from animals, others with connecting with people. But when you start realizing that we do have this bond and thread, then it brings a union. Then we start realizing that love thy neighbor, and this of I am that I am. And when we say, what is that I am within myself, it's like, okay, we all have this different story, it's the different music. It's like Wayne Dyer would say that of what is your dance, what is your music, that what did I come here to be? I did not come here to live someone else's story and what they find acceptable of me or not. I'm just trying to figure out what inspires me and go with that and trust it. And whether it becomes big or not is just like the children's book that I wrote. It was a situation that was set up to make it happen. And it helped me to, as I was going through divorce, another thing that was one of those, you don't do that. Having to break these of wanting to be that for other people, and wait a minute, when I get through that conditioning, what did I come here to be for myself? Because the number one thing I even told my counselor with it is, this is what matters, that connection. This is what I came here to be and to remember and to listen to that calling. So if I keep pushing that off because of what other people are wanting, then I'm going to have to review that at the end. Our life is uncertain, as we know. We keep getting hit with how uncertain it is. So when are you going to go and do that thing that you know you should be doing?
Right.
And that's where my energy work, like the spear light work, that I'm bringing in the sound, the crystals of healing, I'm going within the person's field, so that is a passive way for them, that they will feel things in those times. But all I'm doing is I'm reading their storybook of, on a soul level, what are these energetics that are wanting to be? What has been hampering it? And then we talk about it after those.
It's fascinating, and I hate to interrupt you. It's fascinating to me that regardless, and this is where I think people can get hung up in who are steeped in their own thought processes. And thought process can also be beliefs, right? Beliefs and thoughts, they come hand in hand. And if anyone's really into their thing, it can be like what we're talking about right now can almost seem like, whoa, that's anti-spiritual, that's woo-woo, that's metaphysical. Mm-hmm. And depending on your definition of terms, it could be all of those things, but it's also deeply spiritual.
Right.
And so there's and this is what I think is important for the lesson for people watching or listening, that if this resonates with you, that's cool. But also if you say, whoa, I don't know if my priest or my preacher would like this kind of conversation, that's what you were talking about earlier too, with the not limiting on yourself and your abilities, but also your limiting beliefs on how can energy play a part in my relationship with Jesus or with Buddha or with whomever you might, call the one. This still applies. It was that God, it was that source that gave you this energy in the first place. So connecting to self is still a connecting to the highest one. Would that be accurate?
And it's huge with it. What I told people is when I got into Buddhism, it actually brought me back to Christianity and my relationship with Jesus. What broke me away from the church was the people. It was not the word.
Not the processes and the principles.
Yes, it was the people, and so just for them to be aware of that when we come from that judgmental place, and now I read the Bible, so I know some things that have been said and done to me. It's like, wait a minute, that's not in there. Yeah. I think it's important for us to check with our hearts, is it coming from love or that of fear? Mm-hmm. And you see where people can thrive in the most unagreeable times. It's like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you've read that, but
yes, deep.
That is
deep
one of
book.
My top books for people, that how do you respond to the life around you? Because if someone in Holocaust can, even in that time, say, I came here in this time to be that person, to be able to write this story and to find this. And the big part of it is people are trying to find meaning in all this. So if you're cutting out these practices for them to have that direct connection, and this has happened to me in the work, like you said, the woo-woo, the metaphysical, a lot of people, because of what they've read and stuff like that, it says, don't work with crystals, yet they have the emeralds and everything in the Bible. They worked very specifically with certain stones. Otherwise, it wouldn't be written down the way it is. That of the fasting, there was a lot of yogic things in it. And then they take away people to move their body. So if you can understand that some of it, that maybe there is some conditioning and control of that if these are ways to open up those channels for you to have direct connection in prayer, that you don't have to go through another to tell you the word, to tell you how to get out of it, but you are in that space and you have surrendered and you are fully open to receive. What will you get in that time? Because it may not be the narrative of what you were told as a child or told by the teachers, and don't go there, don't engage with that. And I had to break away from a lot of it, because even my Activate Crystals partner, she's having problems with her family receiving what we're doing with the metaphysical tools. And all I want, so this is me on any of this stuff. You are using it to make the connection. It is not your God. It's not to be used with anything. It's just like food being your medicine. So using herbs and these things, they have always been around, the energetics. It is so important for us to understand that there is that physical level. It's not just that, the spiritual. So, and I'm sorry, this is where I can go on so many topics, but it's fascinating to me with lithium. So that is something people take orally to help with the mental stabilizers. working with lithium crystal, it does the same thing. So it would make perfect sense with these things, right? That what you take internally, the characteristics of it would do on the other. So the same thing with the physical part, moving the body as we talk about the spine and it holding the nervous system. By you doing that, you are bringing that balance. You are opening up those channels for your well-being. So no matter where people are coming from, even on the most basic level, even on the most physical chemistry level, it is doing something. It's why when people do these things, it opens up other channels.
Yes.
When you go on that detox, all of a sudden you feel that warrior. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to start working out too.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to go on that trip. I'm going to take time.
You get momentum.
Yes.
So what do you think is a great way for someone to start introducing these types of concepts into their life? For me, for Qigong, part of my morning routine is very early in the morning, I'm up doing we'll call it personal development, where I'm reading something or watching something, but it's all towards my ability to give to others through the day or to develop myself. And so I come across this Qigong practitioner, and the name of the group or whatever is called Spring Forest Qigong, and it's out of Minnesota. And so I just start finding it's interesting to me, right? Because it's like Tai Chi with movement and this and that. And I've tried meditating. I'm bringing this back together, but I've tried meditating for 30 years, and my mind is very tough for me to tame into stillness, right? And not into focus, but into focused stillness has been a big challenge my whole life. And what I finally found in the last 6-8 months is through this Qigong. It's a moving meditation where now I can put a thought or no thought in my mind, but with very slow movements, just repeated over and over again. And it does bring me a sense of calm, of fulfillment, a type of joy, but it's a subtle joy. It's not an overwhelming, bubbling, effervescence kind of thing. It's a very contemplative, thankful, gratitude state. And then once I do that and I set that part of my day as done, now it's time to get after it, right? Now we go from the soft to the hard,
right,
if you will, the restful to the active. So if someone were wanting to start something, would they look at yoga? Would they look at Tai Chi? Would they look at Qigong? Would they taste all of those things and just look for something that felt right? Or how does one go about starting the journey?
So the doctor that I worked for, he was so perfect with it because he said the best exercise is the one you're going to do.
So good.
So with me, again, right away, I had so much fire and burdens that the Reiki, the Tai Chi, the Qigong, that water grounding, nature, all that got me out of that headspace, that I had. It's like, very simple, bring me here now, get me back into my body, get me out from here. What happens with it is some people are already where they're just like molasses when you see them. And it's like, you may need some kundalini to go in you. You may need some of that spark and that fire to move.
Would yoga fall into that category too? If someone was really grounded or molasses-like, would then some sort of yoga be a fluid movement? Or?
It's kind of an in-between one. So I am just now getting back into, I was so resistant on the traditional yoga of holding poses. What I realized, and it's a different experience for me now, is the trapped energies in the body. So I can geek out on all this stuff, including with the fascia tissue, that it holds our our memories and stuff. We hold them, we trap them in the fascia tissue, a lot of these suppressed things. So when they would get me into things that had to deal with my hips and stuff, like the pigeon hold and stuff like that, I could bite someone's hand. She was trying, it literally happened where she's trying to adjust me and my head turned real quick and I thought, what was that?
I almost bit you.
Yeah. I was like, so when people say yogis and where they're at, it's like they're doing some hardcore work. They're little warriors. And so I'm coming back to it, and it's in a whole different joyous place. Number one, I'm older in my life, so I don't care if I'm falling over and everyone's being all graceful with it. Number two, I've done a lot of the work, so my hip flexors and stuff, my gosh, I can fall asleep doing pigeon hold now. So it's like a whole different experience for me.
Where does pain fall in that category? Because for me, Shauna does a lot of yoga comparatively to me.
Uh-huh.
I'm doing a lot more explosive training and then these real mindful movements.
Right.
And some of those poses, I'm like, holy crap, right? It's brutal for me because I'm not trained. So what's the word to someone who's feeling that? Do you push through that? Do you soften it up and go just inside that zone like I would teach someone in a rehab move to say, look, if it hurts, that's too far. Well, how do we get the most of a movement practice that we're also trying to make into an energetic or even possibly spiritual practice?
Right. So, it's a big thing that I've seen in a few things, including with meditation, when you have those painful thoughts and stuff like that, it's take a few breaths into it. And if it starts moving through that time, then great, it's doing the work. If it's getting more painful, then yeah, you're probably overdoing it, and then just soften up a little bit. It may be just like I said with yoga with me right now, I'm not doing all the things the others are doing. I'm doing what I can. And then as I'm releasing, I'll be able to get into those. So my big thing for anyone is yourself better than anyone else. However, with that said, we've also gone way too on the side that if it doesn't feel good, it isn't right. How many times do people feel good about eating healthy food,
Yes.
And how may people feel good about being depressed and still making themselves go and take their dog for that walk?
Yes.
So there is that of gauging in that we are meant to grow. We are meant to push. We're not meant to be that house plant that stays in that same pot, and we see how they even outgrow those things. You need to keep expanding and pushing, and that's how you can have, when I was in Vail, there were people in their 80s doing black diamonds and stuff, and it really was a huge
skiing,
thing.
You're talking about for those people who don't know what she's talking about. Yeah, black diamonds that's as hard as it gets on a ski slope.
Right.
So when you see someone 80 getting after it, and
it's cold.
Yeah,
I mean, they're 8 in the morning, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And they'd go and see us at the end of the day. They were out there the whole time, and I'm like, and I'm going to baby myself.
I found this to be true, and I'm finding it more. So I'm in my mid 50s now, 55, right? And what I've found is that it's important to do hard things, and it always came naturally before, whether I was studying to get my chiropractic license or studying to get my sports injuries diplomate or any of the other mental things, or going through a horrible rough divorce, or pushing my body to try to shape it in the way that I wanted it to be. There's always been something hard, but now intentionally and consciously, my workouts, I don't make them as intense as I used to because it takes me longer to heal if something's going on. So now I want to know where the limit of hard is for what I'm looking to do for my goals. If I wanted to bench 400 pounds, guess what? The definition of hard changes, as opposed to if I want to have my heart rate up to 85% of my maximum target heart rate, right? Like if that's what I want, it's a different definition of hard. But then also, what am I doing in my relationship that's hard? And not mean hard I dread, but hard to make it better. What am I doing at work? What projects am I engaged in to get my mind that are not easy? Have you found that too? Because that's that balance between soft and hard. Like I think we need to challenge ourselves.
Absolutely. And you see it with people that haven't, and these past few years have shown a lot of that.
Yeah.
Where some people have completely reinvented themselves. Others are still not feeling comfortable leaving their home, and giving themselves permission of it. And I give people permission wherever they are in their life, but I want them happy. I want them fulfilled. The big thing with that, with the over pushing or anything of ourselves, I think the other thing it comes from was, like you said, the intention, the consciousness. Am I doing this for myself because my body is a temple, and the better I feel, the more engaged and energy I have to do the things I love? Or am I doing it because I'm trying to compare myself against that magazine cover?
Yes. Or what my mom tells me, or my dad, or the TV. Right, yeah.
So the intention behind the movement and the action is everything. And when you come from that place of being authentic, then when you have that, when I'm breathing into that hip flexor and it's like, this is painful, it's like, okay, is my ligament going to come out or whatever? You would know what to say with that. But, or is it that it's uncomfortable, but as I'm breathing here, I do see that there is some movement creating. I do feel the difference in it. So the whole pushing and things, who are you pushing for? Is it for yourself, to see what am I capable of, which I get so inspired by that. I'm always in the what if, not in the fear place, but in the possibility place of what if, and the how do you know that, just like coming here, doing my first like official podcast, it's like, I may make a new friend, it was in a place that I don't know what we're talking about. You guys didn't give me anything on this, but it comes from a place of just have your heart open instead of the fear of what can go wrong.
Yes, so good. I want to bring it back to something that you opened with, and then now you just brought back again, is this idea of knowing who we are. I'll call it self-awareness. You call it truth-seeking or finding your truth. Is that more done from your perspective through quiet reflection, through testing yourself through hard times to see what you become in that, or through one of these specific kind of techniques? How do you get to finding, you can be a truth seeker, but how do you know what you're finding and when it's finding, or when you're finding, and if it's real truth for you versus maybe it's all temporary truth. Maybe it's all like, it's truth for me today.
Right.
And what's truth for me today, in 10 years, maybe it'll be, in some way, maybe I look at things different. Can you talk on that a bit?
Well, and I mentioned just like clothes that you wore in your teenage years, they may not fit, they may be out of date. I've had people that even, the hot topic, and it's a tough one, of divorce. No one is wanting that to be a situation. But with the truth seeking, and it was, for my personal situation, it was an ongoing thing, and I did everything. I've been working on myself. This is the other thing, the whole self-help movement. There is a little hurt in that, because we always feel like we need to fix ourselves, that we can always do better. There is always, again, the beating of the brow that we go into. And again, with intentions that you do it because life is short. I want to know what I can do in this time. I don't know if I'll have the same physical health. I don't know if I'll have the same mental capacity to read like the Bible, who say my eyes or my mental state would be able to do it. So when you're doing the truth seeking, it's when you have those moments, and it can happen out of nowhere, you drop it like a hat. It's like the minute you find out that Santa was not who you thought Santa was. It's the next year you're not celebrating these times in the same way. It's still special, but that childlike idea of it, just like that childlike idea of relationships and love, you find out there's a little bit of difference of things. You realize that even for me, it was, I married into my family's ideas of marriage and what would be good for me. It wasn't against the man or anything like that. I didn't have any, traumas or anything like that, but I wasn't able to be in my truth. And thank goodness that I listened to that, because what I have accomplished has happened right before COVID. I mean, it's still kind of, my world is in this flex type of mode of things, but what I have been able to do and give, including with the community and to myself, even in the hardest times, it's like, I was meant to be Ananda. I was supposed to be in bliss. I did not have to stay in those patterns of, where in the end, I'm just an aspect of myself. I'm a sad version of it in certain ways. I have certain things that can come out, but I didn't get to see its full potential. And that's all I want, is to people to explore their full potential, because what a sad thing to have go to waste.
Absolutely.
You're the only one that can bring it out there.
You're the only one. And I think it's important for people to realize you can find full potential in any number of relational aspects. Like in your case, it worked out best for you to kind of take this next step of your journey alone. And not alone in the sense of nobody around you, but not in the same marital relationship. Right. On the other side, there are plenty of marriages where those two people are creating that one flame, so to speak. So they're both stronger together. And there are other situations where one person or a couple are part of a group, whether that's some sort of civic organization, a church, whatever, and all of that brings that flame together. But at the end of the day, the the one that you have to really be at peace with is this one.
That's right.
You with you, me with me. And then this connection, this natural rightness. What I've always found, and you said this so beautifully earlier, when I'm in my right space and I'm taking inspired action, the path lays itself. I don't even need to know where the path's going to go. Right. I have an idea of what I want my life to be or to look like. And if I'm doing my part, then all of a sudden things start falling into place. Is it luck? Of course not. If it's luck, it's labor under correct knowledge, right? If it's that way, it's this fascinating concept of I'm going to do everything that I know to do out of the right motives at the right timing. And then just the next thing is going to show itself. And that comes in every form of truth seeking, at least that for me, that I found at this point. I don't know if you found that or not.
Well, and what's beautiful with it, and I tell people this all the time, I do because I am. It's like there's not another aspect. I'm so far in a place of my life that if I was a janitor working at a grocery store, a teacher, anything in my life, this is who I am. So just like those relationships, I love to be in a good partnership, but if I'm not, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. If I don't have that community living in the mountains and stuff, in the winter times it gets quiet, I'm okay. I'm okay with and I'm okay without, because that connection stays, that truth. The minute it starts throwing off is, okay, where am I finding that? Is there not a healthy boundary? Am I trying to fit into something that is maybe not in my integrity? Going back to that of finding our truth, we know. My mom, I'm so grateful between my family at a very young age, which thank goodness I don't have regrets of it, because it did bring the rebel too. But to follow your heart. It was always follow your heart, in your heart. And that's where this is not science for anyone. This transcends any religion, anything. In Kundalini, we have this with the word Satnam, which is truth is my identity. And it's the teacher is within. We always have that with every heartbeat. It's just there. You have that. When you do something, you have that inkling that, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And now I'm kind of stuck. So what do I do? Do I try fixing it? Or do I do another lie? Or do I do this? And it doesn't go right, but even if it did, it doesn't even feel right here. So going with that too of life, Buddha was so beautiful with having the first noble truth being life is suffering. No one's getting out of that. That is something that unfortunately I think the New Age movement and the laws of attraction has put the spin on, that if something happens, then something must have gone wrong. What was your karma? What was this? And it's like going back to Viktor Frankl, the man's search of meaning, that there is meaning. What is your intake? What are you getting from it? So now in my life, as we get older, we get smarter, including how we move our bodies and stuff like that. I do a lot more listening with others, like the married couple for 50 some years, and is like, what is your secret in that? What can I take instead of doing the same thing over and over again and not figuring it out? What is that key that you have? What is that key, like you are doing with this? Each person you're talking with and having those questions, that stimulating, how much easier it is to learn that way by seeing what other people and their aspects have, instead of taking the hard road over and over again just because you're so stubborn that you want to stay in your own self-awareness of in a different way, in that cocoon. Like I said, some people not getting out of the house and stuff. So it's having the open heart, not only for yourself to have that compassion again, but as you do that, then you are more open for others too. And
you're living example of that, and I want to make sure I bring this out there. Mm-hmm. You wrote a children's book, and as I understand, it looks like it's part of a series or something. Is that right?
It was originally, it was a beautiful idea. That Julia, she had this idea on a monthly children's book, Bruno's Amazing Adventures.
And Bruno's this beautiful illustrated dog, a Bernese Mountain Dog. Yes.
And so it was everything from every month he was on a new adventure. The first one was hers, and you can still get these on Amazon. But it was the Rocky Mountains, and it was giving safe keys for children, don't play with fire, have an adult and with the wild. And so it came in this time, as funny enough, as I'm house surfing after the divorce and stuff like that, and listening to spirit. This is a quick thing, so that when people realize that you don't know where you're going, you just allow inspiration come. This is a perfect example. I did a weekend writing retreat, and in that, and it was where you're meditating to just channel in. If people want to get into something like this, Tom Bird did this, and it was COVID, I think, time too. So I'm just doing it at the house.
Yeah, because you wanted to be a writer.
I did.
Is that why you did that?
I was just inspired
Did you
why
were
not?
inspired to take the course? Like, I think I want to take a writing retreat.
It's why not? Let's see what comes out. So I had to let go of my past story, including the marriage and that. I just had to. It was almost like an exorcism for myself in it. And I was kind of disappointed in it because, I'm not going to have this go out to the world, And so all of a sudden, this was a student in one of my 3 Keys classes. It was more on the Tai Chi at that time. But in this time, I've always been open with my life, with my clients, with anyone. So I do send out these emails to people, what's happening in my life and what I'm gaining from it. And just keeping that contact. Yes, because I cannot stand when people are smiling and saying everything's great and you can just see their jawbones just completely tightened up, and you're like, it's not okay. But yet it is, we get through. So she ended up reaching out to me because someone else did not get back to her on this children's book. So every month it was for this and to do a nonprofit. Unfortunately, the whole thing with COVID hit. This whole thing got squashed. She had health things. It was one of those things where it's like, man, I was the last book too, funny enough. So because I just
finished,
Ananda,
right?
Journey to Ananda. So it was my story in this time too that I'm honoring my light and truth. And Bruno in it carrying the big backpack was actually the part of my ex-husband because he needed all of his comforts, including when I was leaving. He said, but we don't have kids. Who's going to take care of me? And I just thought, wow, this is the world. And he was a little on personal side, but a police officer and his health and everything. And I'm like, why? Life is so short. You don't even know what retirement's going to look for you in the end. And those were some of the problems because he lived his decision making where people think it's smart, it's grounding, it's secure. It's like, but how happy are you?
Yeah. What
has happened with your health so that when you retire, is it going to do it? I know plenty of people, and this is why you guys are around with this law firm, that, they think they have everything set up and all of a sudden that injury happens and insurance is not going to cover it or that person's not going to pay their side. So coming from the place of security out of fear, rather than I am doing the best I can, I'm not reckless or anything, but I'm also going to rest my head at the end of the day that I did the best I can. And I stayed as close as I could listening to the word of what I came in here for.
So you shared that in the book then with
I did. And in the end, he left his backpack.
He
had amazing.
And I was like, wait a minute, why didn't the elephant take the backpack? The elephant said she was going to take it twice.
And every time, she lost it. And so even with the divorce, it was one of those things that you have it. It's okay. I'll be okay. It's amazing how many times I hear from people that they've tried playing it so smart, so safe, including people in their late 60s in the same marriage. And I get into these conversations. I think they know that I'll listen and it's like, oh, I'll write a blog or something on this or be here. But she was talking about divorce and now she gets it, why people do it. And now she's at the time of her life that those thoughts, but who would take care of me? Well, what is he going to do in his health concerns? And it's like, wow, we condition ourselves so much in the world around us. Instead, going back to these practices, if you just stay connected in, just know you can feel good within yourself. And in the end, you have to laugh about no one is going to get out this alive.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So be at peace with that because the more connected in, you know who your spirit is and where you're going.
Right. And that makes you always a better partner in any relationship. I mean, we've talked a little bit about divorce the last little bit here. And what I've found in that is oftentimes divorce happens because neither party is willing to do what needs to be done to be the best version of themselves.
Right.
Instead, it's like, hey, why don't you do this? And why don't you, and you're not enough, and da-da-da-da-da, as opposed to if I'm doing my best self and you're doing your best self, then we will be together and we'll be complementary as opposed to enabling or any of the rest of it. And interestingly enough, I think that there's also a thing of universal physics in play where if one party really works hard on making a connection and the other party doesn't, it's going to break apart, right? So there's a couple reasons why things can work or not work in any relationship, not just a married relationship, but in any friend relationship. I call it in the way that I use it is the bank account of trust and love.
Yes, I listened to that. So good. Please
Thank
share
you.
again.
Yeah. So, basically, a
that.
very simple concept is you and I have a brand new relationship. We met today. And this podcast is putting deposits into each other's accounts. So now when you leave, I'm going to be like, man, Ananda's so cool and she's so nice and she's got so many gifts that she's trying to give the world. And hopefully I gave some deposits into that account as well. And so that now as our time goes on, should we see each other once more in our life or 1,000 times, we keep adding to the deposit so that when, as always will happen, some stresses the relationship, that's a withdrawal. And that withdrawal now allows the relationship to still be strong because there's plenty of balance left in it, right? So I think that's an important note on relationships, that it is the individual journey that determines the couple journey or the organizational journey. And I see that in our culture here. The harder I work on me, the better I can make sure this culture is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even with 100 people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why people can't get so hung up on the outcome of things.
Yes.
There's too much of that, well, if I do this, what is the guarantee at the end? And it's like, just do it because that's what you were called here to do.
Yes.
Do it because it's right. Do it because your heart's telling you to do it.
Beautiful.
So
I want to end with this. You are a healer, a teacher, a guide, a friend. You are all these things to the people that you work with. If someone wanted to reach out to learn more about who you are, what you're doing, and maybe even if they live up in our neck of the woods, you and I are relative
I
neighbors.
have people driving that way all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
How could someone reach out to you to learn more?
Yeah, so I'm part of Taspins in Conifer, Taspins Healing Center. So that's where I do the Kundalini and the 3 Keys class that has a Tai Chi, the Qigong, and Reiki in it. And then I do my healing work, the Spear Light out of there. And then actually the Saturday that I'm hoping that you and Shauna can make, it's the Full Moon Cacao Ceremony. It's something that I do with Bailey, who's a Reiki master herself. And it's where we do a ceremony at the beginning. There's going to be intention. It's the full moon in Gemini, so it's going to be a lot of that dark to light shadow work stuff, but the lightness and the ease in it, because there is a play. Life is just a grand play in the end, but then when people go down for the relaxation, that's where I do the gong bath. I have 3 of my gongs going, and then she's going around with the Reiki work. And it is such a beautiful community. We have people that sign up every month. We have a few spots left, but we do this every month, and the proceeds goes to Taspin Spread the Love Foundation. So everything goes to them. It's as little as $10 and can go up to what people can do.
Nice. That's beautiful. Well, one last question for you, and I think this is going to be a good one, especially given our conversation. Has there been one piece of advice that has really moved you or made you the person you are today? Either you've learned it or someone has shared with you that you'd be willing to share with me and with us?
I think it was just us being okay when things shifted for me because of the thoughts I had, because of the past actions. And it was a moment with my Buddhist teacher that I thought I may be going into a psych ward because it was the depression, the thoughts, and it was coming up stronger because of the meditation and the awareness. So I was that much more aware of my thoughts at the time and trying to, though, cut it down. And it was just where I didn't know where things were going to go. And he said, it's okay, it's only a thought. And when he said that, it's like, I can't stand, because from my childhood and everything else, that there's something wrong with my heart level. There's something wrong with my mind. I'm not going into the narrative of everyone else. There is something that's got to be off with me. I'm not meant to be here. And now from that place, it allowed me to learn a lot of different things, including doing energy healings on people that I was also an empath, something else we could do another time. But we moved into a house where a mom committed suicide in the garage. So being an empath at such a young age, I'm around this energy, taking that in and holding on and not even realizing it. So there's a lot of things that when we say, I'm not liking my life, I'm not liking myself, I'm this, just take it as a moment, because even 20 minutes from now, as we go into the awareness, your thoughts may change.
A thought is a thought.
A thought is a thought. A time in life is a time of life. What I did in my 20s, love it? No, I was not a great person, very ego-driven, very much doing things out of how am I going to look? Is this approval, and things that, I was, whatever, but I'm not going to live in my 20s, and I'm not even going to live in what I did 20 minutes ago either. We are constant, where are you taking your path? What are you planting seeds of, and what are you reaping, and is it yours to reap, or is that someone else's stuff? Maybe leave it for them.
Wow. That's such wisdom. And this whole time, this hour we've been together is just full of love and truth and wisdom and perspective. And I can't thank you enough for joining me. And I hope you had a good time. I know
had an amazing
I did.
time. I'm ready to get some tea with you.
Yes,
keep
exactly.
It going.
And if you found this to be valuable, if you enjoyed it as a viewer or listener, please share this message. This is a message that all of us can use. And, even if it feels different, if it feels a little uncomfortable, try it on. Just try it on for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a week or something, and see what it does for you. So, Ananda, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Such an honor.
And to all of you watching, listening, remember, you can make a difference.